Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to my home office. I'm sorry I missed class today, but I am here now taking care of two kids that are sick, and I'm sure it's only just a matter of time before it hits mama. So, thankfully, thanks to the wonderful world of internet, we can still have class. Today, we are continuing the full picture process that we've been building for the past few weeks. But first, I want to tell you guys our anchor verse. Okay? I know I can't write it on a board, but it is Proverbs 16:9. In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. This anchor verse is very, very special to me because it is actually my personal anchor verse for this whole self-development and goal-setting class. This verse has been an inspiration to me since I first thought of the concept of this class over 2 years ago now. We are planners by nature, we as humans, right? Like I talked to you guys before, we are all goal achievers because we eat when we're hungry. We put on a jacket when we're cold. We go to bed when we're tired. We have a desired outcome and we take the steps we need to do to make it happen. From the moment we wake up, we are mapping out our days, our goals, our futures. Some of us do this well. Some of us struggle, but that doesn't matter. We set alarms, we make lists, we build timelines, and dream of where we want to go. And there is nothing wrong with that. In fact, that is exactly how God made us. Vision and intention are gifts from Him. But Proverbs 16:9 offers us a beautiful and humbling other side to the productivity coin. We plan, yes, but God directs. Notice that the verse doesn't say that our plans are foolish. It doesn't tell us to stop dreaming and stop planning. It simply reminds us of who holds the pen when the story is actually written. We sketch the outline, sure, but God fills in the details. And man, His details are always better than ours could ever be. He knows better. Think about the moments in your life when things didn't go according to plan, right? A door closed or a path shifted from what you thought it should be. But what felt like a detour turned out to be the destination. That was not coincidence. That was providence. That's God's hand on your life, directing your paths. This verse is not a call to passivity, okay? It's not telling us to not do anything. It is calling us to partnership with God. Plan with purpose, yes, but hold your plans with open hands up to the one you know knows better. Dream boldly, yes, but trust deeply the one you know wants what's best for you. And do the work, right? But surrender the outcome to the one you know has plans to prosper you. The God who establishes our steps is not working against your plans. He is working beyond them, okay? Towards something greater than you could ever imagine seeing from where you stand. So, I'm teaching you in this class to plan your course, yes, but I hope that I'm also teaching you to trust the one who knows every step. Okay? All right, now let's begin. Over the last few lessons, we've been building this goal map from the top down, right? We've zoomed way out and talked about the legacy goals, the kind of life you want to live, and the impact you want to leave behind. When then we moved down a layer and talked about the long-term goals, those 2 to 10-year pillars that move you toward that bigger vision. Last week, we filled in the medium-term goals, the 6 months to 2 years that build momentum and prove to yourself that you're serious about getting there. So that leaves us with the short-term goals. Specifically, the two next rows on your goal map that are labeled this quarter and this month. These are the goals that you're actively working toward right now. Not someday, not in a few years. These are the goals that live in your current season of life. Okay, if the long-term goals are the big destinations on the map, and the medium-term goals are the major cities along the way, the short-term goals are your mile markers and the turns in the road. These are the milestones that make your progress actually visible. So let's do a quick refresher because we've talked a lot about short-term goals already. And hopefully you've all been practicing at making smart short-term goals for the past several months. Short-term goals are the goals that typically take anywhere from just a few days to about 6 months to complete. They are the quick wins, the things you can accomplish relatively soon, but don't let the word short fool you. Just because something is short-term doesn't make it small or unimportant. In fact, short-term goals are where most of your real tangible progress happens, and possibly the most important category of goal timelines. This is why we actually started with this way back in lesson 5. Think about it this way. Legacy goals are the dream, long-term goals are the direction, medium goals build momentum in that direction, but the short-term goals are where the work actually gets done. This is where your vision becomes tangible. This is where you start seeing actual progress. This is where your effort starts producing results. If we go back to our farming metaphor that we've been using, legacy goals are those fruit trees that you hope to leave behind for your family someday. Long-term goals are the current harvest that you're working toward. Medium-term goals are that growing season where the crops mature. Well, short-term goals, that's where you're planting seeds. They are the planting, the early growth. And here's something really important to remember. Short-term goals should be changing fairly often. When you complete one, you replace it with another. Hopefully, you already have another one planned out and ready by the time one is finished. These are the goals that should constantly be rotating throughout your life. If your short-term goals look the exact same 6 months from now, something probably needs adjusting. Because short-term goals should represent movement and progress, real growth. And for you guys especially, you guys are so young. Your lives change fast. Think about the last 6 months. How much has your life changed? Friends change, interests change, schedules change, responsibilities change. You are growing so fast. And that actually gives you an advantage because you're used to that fast changing. Some adults can look back 5 years and realize that nothing in their life has changed, that they've stayed stuck in the same place for 5 years. But you guys are learning early on how to make sure that never happens to you. By constantly creating and completing these short-term goals, you will keep your life moving forward. All right, so we're about to do what we've done for the past 2 lessons. You're going to fill in the next 2 rows of your goal map. The rows labeled this quarter, although right now I want you to think about this as the next few months, not the next 3 months, since this quarter is technically almost done. Think of this row right now as before June 30th, okay? The end of next quarter. By the time we recreate these goal maps, we will be starting quarter 2 pretty promptly anyway. All right, and then also you're going to be filling in this month row, which you can look at as March or you can look at as April, whatever you want. And remember that there are 2 ways that you can fill these in. Option 1, look back at your be, do, have lists in your journals. Remember those dream lists that you created very early on in class. There might still be some short-term goals in there that you want to start working on now. Option number 2, look up your goal map at the rows that we've already filled in. Look at your medium-term goals and ask yourself, what chunk of this could I start working on right now? Right? Remember my 10 to 25% rule. The awesome thing about that rule is it works all the way down, thanks to momentum. All right, so for example, if a medium-term goal is run a 10K race within 2 years, well, then a short-term goal might need to be follow a beginner running plan like the Couch to 5K for the next 3 months, 4 months. If a medium-term goal is become fluent in Spanish, then a short-term goal might be have a 2-minute conversation in Spanish by practicing my Spanish 20 minutes a day for the next 3 months. You see how that works? You take the bigger goal and you carve off a manageable piece, an actionable piece, an achievable piece of that goal. And did you notice the SMART goal elements in those examples? Remember that while it was fine for our longer term goals to be pretty vague, short-term goals should be SMART. Remember, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. If you don't remember the details of the SMART goal framework, you can go to lesson 5 on the video for lesson 5 and click on the 21 minutes to 22 minute mark. It starts right around 21:30. So if you need a reminder, go watch that and then go ahead and take a few minutes to work on defining some short-term goals. And since this is a pre-recorded lesson and not live, I don't have to wait. You can just pause the video right here. Fill in a few SMART term goals in the quarter and month rows. All right. Well, now that you're done with that, we're going to do something really important, okay? And this is actually the new concept for today because you guys already know all about short-term goals. You've already learned and been practicing SMART goals for a while. So I want you to look at your goal map. Pick it up and just look at it. What we're going to do now is what I call the connection test. Okay, we're going to see whether the goals on your map actually talk to each other. What I want you to do is start at the bottom, or the bottom that you have right now, and trace upward. Look at a short-term goal that you just decided on, and then look at the row right above it, and the row above that. And ask yourself this question. If I complete this goal, what bigger goal does it directly help? If you can trace a clear path upward, then fantastic. That means your goals are aligned, but you might look at a goal and realize that it doesn't seem to connect to anything above it. That's okay. Don't worry if that's the case. It just means you have a little bit more work to do. For example, maybe you wrote master my push-up, right? But when you look at your goal map, none of the bigger goals mention upper body fitness. That might look like a problem. I just had this problem a little while ago when I was adding to my goal map. I had added in mastering my push-up because I remembered that that was one of the things that I wanted to do soon and kick it back into gear. But then I was looking over the rest of my fitness stuff and almost all of it is more cardio oriented. And I realized, well, shoot, I have all these calisthenics goals that I know need me to have really strong upper body strength. And I need to start with mastering my push-up. So it wasn't actually a problem that I noticed that disconnection there. It was actually a key. Because usually when that happens, there's not a wrong goal problem. There's a missing goals problem. The puzzle piece exists, but the rest of the puzzle hasn't been built yet. Okay? So that push-up goal might actually be belong to a bigger goal that you simply haven't identified and written down yet. Because maybe you want to get stronger in your upper body. Maybe you want to learn calisthenics. Maybe you want to master an advanced bodyweight skill someday, like the human flag. That's one of my long-term goals. The push-up is a clear part of that path. You just have to define the higher goals if they're missing. Remember that this map is ever evolving, ever growing. So the rule we're learning today is every goal belongs somewhere. But if it doesn't have a home yet, you either find its home or build the bridge to it. Okay? Sometimes that means adding a goal above a goal, and sometimes that means adding a goal below one. But the important thing is learning to make your goals work together. Okay? Your goals shouldn't just be random islands scattered around your life. Otherwise, you'll just be running around in circles, feeling pretty productive, but not really having anything to look back on and say, hey, that built something, right? They should form a connected path. So let's go a little deeper into our examples so that you feel like you fully understand it. All right. Let's say a student has on their goal map, long-term goal, run a marathon, but their short-term goal is just master a push-up. At first glance, that might look confusing. Sure, they're both in the fitness category, and I suppose you could say they both serve an overarching lifetime goal of wanting strong fitness. But a push-up doesn't directly serve a marathon. But that doesn't mean that the push-up goal is bad or the marathon goal is wrong. It just means that we're missing a couple parts of that map. So maybe that push-up goal belongs to a different long-term goal, like the advanced calisthenics, mastering a planche, or building serious upper body strength. Now suddenly the push-up goal makes perfect sense. It's part of a different path in that same category. That's why I have multiple different goals in each square. Eventually, you guys will too. Meanwhile, the marathon goal needs its own short-term milestone. Maybe something like following a beginner running plan, running 3K 3 times per week for 3 months, or training for a 10K race. Now the map makes more sense. And sometimes one goal can actually support multiple paths. For example, doing burpees twice a week for 3 months. That helps your endurance and it helps your strength, which helps both running and calisthenics. So one action, which we'll talk more on after spring break, can often serve multiple goals at once. That's when your goals start really working together instead of competing with each other. So now it's your turn. You're going to do the goal alignment audit. Look through your goal map and start with your short-term goals. For each one, ask yourself, which bigger goal does this support? If you can trace the path upward, fantastic. If you can't, then you have more work to do. And that's all part of creating a firm foundation. It's okay. It's actually a good thing when you realize that there's a gap to fill in, because that means you're getting closer to the complete picture. Chances are, if something doesn't line up, you will need to add a bridge goal somewhere above a short-term goal, or you'll need to define a new short-term goal that supports a bigger goal you already have that is not yet supported by the shorter-term goals. These are not mistakes, okay? I want to make that clear. They're just part of building your map. So spend a few minutes reviewing your goals and making adjustments and filling in gaps as needed. All right, once you guys have done that, if you look at your goal map now, you'll notice something. We have now filled in almost the entire map. Legacy goals, long-term goals, medium-term goals, and now short-term goals. But there are 2 rows at the bottom that should still be empty. They are labeled this week and today/daily. These rows are not actually goals in quite the same sense. They are something slightly different. These rows represent your systems, habits, routines, recurring actions that you take on a daily and weekly basis. And those daily and weekly behaviors, they make your short-term goals possible. So next lesson after spring break, we will talk about those because a goal without a system will usually fail. But today we stop here at the level of short-term milestones. And I want you guys to pat yourselves on the back because you've come so far and you've learned more than most adults learn before they're 50. All right, before we finish, I want to bring this back to our anchor verse, that one that's near and dear to my heart for this class. Proverbs 16:9. Remember, it says, "In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." There's something so beautiful about that verse, and I hope you guys will meditate on it for a little bit today. It reminds us that planning is not wrong, it is good. In fact, planning is wise. God gave us the ability to think ahead, to dream, to build, to prepare. That is exactly what you're doing with this goal map. You are planning your course. But the second half of that verse reminds us, very importantly, that God establishes our steps. Sometimes a goal changes. Sometimes a new opportunity appears that we never imagined would. And sometimes we discover a path that we had never expected. Sometimes those orphan goals on your map, those random dreams that don't seem to connect yet, sometimes those are seeds that God planted in your heart, seeds that will make sense later. So our job isn't to control every step perfectly. Our job is to plan wisely, to walk faithfully, and to stay open to God's guidance throughout our journey. And when we do that, our lives start to move forward with purpose, one milestone at a time. So you guys keep going because you're worth it.